Hey guys, it has been a long time. After getting way caught up in the editing of this episode and returning to my main, and then experiencing a bit of burnout, and now I'm playing WoW Classic, I'm finally back. A big drawback of this series has been the animations and how long they take me to do, because really I'm a complete novice at all of this. I'm really just kind of learning as I go. With that said, I really don't want to sacrifice quality of my videos for quantity. I think that is kind of the aspect I like the most about my videos. So I'd rather focus on putting out videos that I am proud of, even if they're a little more infrequent. I do have a Twitch and I have streamed this account in the past, but I'm going to be focusing more on YouTube for now, solely because I find that it is hard for me to focus on both of them at once. I also made a brand new left-click only Ultimate Ironman in which I use a mouse that only has one button. So that's kind of fun to watch, and I'm probably going to make a video about that pretty soon. And that's going to be a much more thrown together kind of video, not going to be any kind of animations or anything that are really special. Anyways, let's get on to what I've been doing over the past, I don't know, almost a year. Hey guys, it's Miniman, back with another minigame-only Ironman progress log. We have a lot to cram into this one, but I'm going to try and get us caught up as much as possible. And hopefully by the end of this episode, we will have unlocked our rune scimitar from Shades of Mortagn's silver chests. God, say that 5 times fast. So first up, we decided to try our luck at barrows. This stage in the game I was considering barrows a minigame, so I'll go ahead and give a quick explanation as to why that was, and why I will no longer be doing barrows. Back when I first theory crafted my account, there was a lot more gray area as to what constituted a minigame. The biggest source of confusion was Shades of Mortagn not having a minigame symbol on the map. Additionally, barrows has historically been called a minigame in a lot of forum posts, wiki pages, and blog posts for many years now. As you can see here, these are current pages on the official wiki that categorize barrows as a minigame, as well as Shades of Mortagn, neither of which had a minigame symbol on the map. Barrows was originally released in May 2005, and as early as 2008, barrows began to be referenced as a minigame. A big reason for this is because many minigames were released after barrows, and as such, player perspective began to shift as far as what content could and could not be considered a minigame. Within the same year barrows was released, 2005, Rogue's Den, Blast Furnace, Rogue Trader, Taibo One-Eye Cleanup, Fight Pits, Fight Caves, and Rat Pits were all released, all of which are now marked with a minigame symbol on the world map. But only Fight Pits, Fight Caves, and Rat Pits were identified in the original releases as minigames. So somehow, over time, opinions shifted, and barrows went from being considered a mini-boss to being a mini-game. Anyways, back to present day, Shades of Mortagn was actually updated about 8 months ago to have a red star on the map. This happened a few weeks after I reported the absence of red stars at Mortagn and barrows as a bug. So Mortagn getting a red star and barrows not getting one was my first red flag. Additionally, the way I initially tried to judge what counted as a minigame was by the minigames listed on the Minigames wiki page, because I figured player consensus would be kind of the best thing to go with such a big gray area. However, I decided to make my own list to maintain the integrity of the account when Chambers of Xeric and Theater of Blood were added to the wiki as minigames in July of 2018. Personally, I don't consider those minigames, and I never will. So that's when I really decided to divert from my previous method of using the wiki page. The final nail in the coffin for barrows was Jagek's release of the collection log, which lists barrows as a boss rather than a minigame or other. All of this combined led me to believe that I should no longer consider barrows a minigame. With that said, before I changed this, we did do 10 Barrows kill count, including my first 100% chest, which did mean that I could unlock Impetuous impulses, per my own rules. Throughout the 10kc, we really did not get anything, but as per my rules, I was allowed to train Hunter to 17 so that I could catch baby implings, as well as complete Lost City for easier access to Puro Puro. And even though I'm stopping Barrows, I'm glad that I made that a milestone to do before I unlocked Puro Puro, because if Impetuous Impulses had been unlocked from the beginning, I would have had very quick access to a lot of supplies and food, essentially making a lot of my cooking grind completely redundant, and really speeding up the progress of the account, and I think the early game stuff is much more interesting for me. Baby Implings and Young Implings alone drop a lot of crafting supplies, food, and even some early weapons and armor. So even though we did artificially inflate the difficulty to get to Impetuous Impulses, it is a huge unlock for me. It gives plenty of access to clue scrolls, food, materials, and even weapons like a dragon longsword and a DDS if I can catch dragon implings. However, implings within Puro Puro have the XP from catching them reduced by half, meaning it's going to take an extremely long time to unlock all implings. Now, I probably won't grind all the way up to dragon implings, but there's a lot of implings that are going to be very useful for me for our eventual fight caves attempts. My possible gear setups for fight caves is shaky to say the least. It's been about 2 years since I got a fire cape, and I did it with full God D'hide and a blowpipe, so this is going to be a pretty big leap in skill for me, I'm sad to say. The setup I've attempted practice runs with on my main was using full void ranged, a magic shortbow, rune arrows, a glory which acted as a stand-in for an amulet of the damned which I can obtain from Shades of Morton, snakeskin boots, and a single ring of recoil. Because I don't have access to red spider's eggs, super restores are only obtainable from the Jekyll random event, which means I either need to do attempts with no brews, opting for prayer potions and baskets of strawberries instead, or make damn sure that I complete the fight caves on my first try with the restores. Considering training Herblore to a point where I could make brews would most likely not be worth the time for just a fight caves attempt, I'm planning on doing it with just prayer potions and strawberries. After some testing, I may also try to pick up an obsidian shield for the extra range defense, and training fletching and smithing to a point I can craft a rune crossbow. This would not only be way better damage on its own, but I could also use enchanted bolts, and have way better defensive stats to help me tank the rangers. However, my combat stats are also lacking. In order to train combat, I'll be doing pest control. Pest control allows me to train combat while earning points that can be spent on prayer experience. However, I want to have my best possible melee gear before I start training. It may seem crazy to bother with gear when I'm this low of a level, but the rune scimitar is going to permanently be my best in slot melee weapon, even better than the dragon longsword that becomes obtainable with 83 Hunter. Likewise, a dragon defender will be my best in slot offhand for DPS, so I would rather get both of those now than do a bunch of training without them. The Dragon Defender is pretty straightforward, just play the various Warriors Guild minigames for tokens and kill Cyclopses. However, I will only be picking up the Defenders since they are the only unique reward from the minigame, and the minigame symbols on the map seem to apply to each minigame that gives tokens rather than the entire guild. It's probably not too big of a deal to pick up the other loot because really none of it's useful for me, but there isn't much that they drop that I'll really miss anyways, and I'd rather err on the side of account integrity, just personally. The Rune Scimitar, however, is a much longer grind. My best firemaking training methods are actually pest control, chopping the trees within the instance and burning them, and cremating shades in Shades of Morton. The problem with pest control is that the trees don't respawn within a round, which means I max out at about 5 to 6k experience per hour there. And Shades of Morton requires so many extra steps between training firemaking that it averages much lower. I do allow myself to chop down the trees in Morton for the purpose of making normal pyre logs for burning shades, but I don't really like using the trees for simply training firemaking because it seems like too much of a gray area to me because it's just kind of in the open world. If it were instanced, I'd feel much more comfortable doing that. If Morton existed within an instance, I could chop down the trees and burn the logs without being concerned with whether or not it was a part of the minigame. What if I told you there was an instanced version of Morton? Deep within the depths of Mauritania lies a town named Berg de Rot. Here lies the secret to my firemaking training method. Completing Innate of the Myarchy grants me access to the temple trekking minigame, which involves escorting villagers to and from Berg de Rot. Along the way are a number of encounters, one of which happens to take place in the town of Morton. This instanced version of Morton will spawn a number of shades depending on the difficulty of your trek and follower. Once these shades are killed, it's just me, my buddy Dalshin, and a forest full of instanced, respawning trees, all within a minigame. With this method, I'm able to gain about 20k experience per hour, easily 4 times the XP rate of my next highest method. And so began my quest for the Rune Scimitar.